Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast.
Don't time that one. Holy cow.
I'm Rich Dotson. He's Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
He's Garret Price.
I just realized we started. I don't even have my headphones in.
I mean, who needs them?
He's Jared Wackerly.
Work on it. Hi.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Time.
Yeah.
You got time.
No rush.
No,
I don't know if you can tell by the intro, but I'm sick.
Rich is under the weather.
Yeah, I've been sick for like 3 days. And I was like, I can't miss the first show of the year.
No way, man.
It can't have anything to do with it being New Year's and partying or anything, right?
No, I was sick before New Year's
He
Eve.
was sick. I was there.
Yeah, for 2 days before New Year's Eve. Now, on New Year's Eve, I was like, I'm still drinking. It doesn't matter. And Mac can attest to that. His wife and my wife were mad at me. It happens. It happens. I'm gonna
Rich was
upset
such
her.
an ass. My wife was mad at me.
I mean, it was like 12:31 in the
it was
morning.
late. Yep.
I thought some things were funny to play. The girls didn't. you know?
Girls, I mean, that does happen.
So I feel kind of okay. It's just my head's heavy, my voice is strappy. But luckily for me,
Knees, weak arms are heavy.
Yep, exactly.
I'm spaghetti.
Yeah.
Lucky for me, this is a show I don't have to do a lot of talking in. Only when I'm up. I'm not going to chime in too much here because we're doing our way too early 2024 rookie mock draft.
That's right.
Superflex, tight end premium. If you don't play in a Superflex or tight end premium league, I think Brock Bowers will probably still stay in the same spot, if not higher. And you would just move the quarterbacks down.
Yep.
Till, Caleb Williams probably dropped to the back end of the first, right around there. And Drake May, whatnot. So we're going to do a way too early 2024 mock draft. Today's show, we will do the first round. And tomorrow's show, we will have the second round come out. So as a reminder, 2 Dynasty Nerd shows weekly.
Wow.
That's a big change.
That is a big change for the new year.
And we still have a Nerd Herd show. It's not like there's not a Nerd Herd show.
Yeah, and then in season, me and Matt are going to do the injury show on Mondays. And then you and Jared are going to drop in your show whenever you can.
That's right.
On there as
Dropping
well.
it
So,
like it's hot.
so much Dynasty content. And wait till we ever decide to say, like, hey, we're going to do Dynasty Nerds every day.
We're
I
getting
mean,
there.
5 days a week.
Yeah, we're not doing it on weekends. We're not that committed.
Come on. And that's when all the action happens.
So I'm excited.
It's true. We got to watch.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I hope everybody had a great day or night bringing in the new year, 2024. I'm excited. We're inching closer. The last week of February will be the 10-year anniversary of doing this podcast.
Wow.
A full decade of talking with Matt,
Whoa.
Dynasty, talking with Garret for about 5 years, Dynasty, and talking with Jared for about 5 minutes, Dynasty. So, yeah, we're here. It's exciting. So let's kick it off. The draft order will be Matt, myself, Garret,
Yep.
Jared.
And then Jared. Yep.
So we'll roll around here, talk about a player while we're picking them. I'm not going to chime in too much because my voice is a little raspy.
You say that now. We'll
Yeah.
see.
In the heat of the moment.
Right. He'll fight through.
And listen,
Rich
I
Dotson flu game.
am nowhere near on all these prospects. Like I am so like very quick glance. Help from Jared and Garret to give me a good overall ranking
Oh, yeah.
list
Yeah.
here because these guys are in the Devi and they're way ahead of me here. So
Well, and even Jared and I, like, even though we've known about these guys for a while, and we still have not done our deep dives on these guys. So, like, every year you hear, perfect example. Last year, I had a guy that was third running back off the board in Sean Tucker. He ended up not even being in my top 10 running backs. So
Right.
a lot can still change.
Okay, Sean.
well, that's right. 1 year from now, 1 year ago from now, yeah, you had Sean Tucker. Really
I had
high.
Sean Tucker as my RB3, and then when I actually got to draft time after doing all my research, I was like, I like him way less than I thought I was going to, and he didn't make my top 10. So a lot can still change, but just off of what we know, what we've briefly seen, the reports, all that kind of stuff, this is roughly where we'd have them.
And we're film guys, so we're not like,
Absolutely.
we're not deep analytic guys. We use analytics, but we're really film guys. And what we found, over the last 10 years, our success comes from watching film like that. I always tell people like the film don't lie. Like I don't need stats. I just need to watch the film.
Yeah, and no doubt. And I made a couple of picks here, without having really watched anything, and then I went back and watched film afterwards, and I'm maybe slightly disappointed in some of my picks after that. I mean, and that could change after more study. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And
you could come back to loving them again.
That's what I mean. I could come back and be like, oh, that was a good pick, but after a very top layer quick glance at these guys, some of them were like, That doesn't look great.
So let's get these names on the radar. Let's kick it off. Superflex tight end premium, which, if you don't know, Superflex means you can start 2 quarterbacks in your league. Tight end premium means the tight end usually gets anywhere from 1.5 points per reception to 2 points per reception. It is my favorite way to play Dynasty Fantasy Football currently. It's the only way I really start all my new startups that way. And the reason so is because it gives more credit to the quarterback, more value to the quarterback. We're in one quarterback leagues. You can just keep trading and pick up Joe Flacco's.
Right.
Future 2-time Super Bowl champion, future Super Bowl and 2-time Super Bowl MVP, Joe Flacco, and carry yourself to
future Ring of Honor member for the Cleveland Browns.
Future Ring of Honor member, yeah.
Statue. Probably.
If the Browns go to the Super Bowl, I'm getting a Joe Flacco jersey. And I don't know why. I know I've said it for 10 years, but I feel it in my gut the Browns are going to the Super Bowl this year. I just feel it in my gut.
Rich is wacko.
They're clicking at the right time.
Yep.
Dude, they're a hot team at the right. I was saying the same thing over the weekend. I was like, dude, they're the hottest team right now at the right time, besides the Ravens.
Some of the bigger teams that you would think, Philly's not
Scuffling
clicking
a little bit.
Buffalo, Kansas
KC,
City's falling apart. Yeah,
Miami just lost both their defensive ends out, Chubb being out. So, yeah, we'll see. Hey, I'm due.
got to win games.
44 years due.
1 week at a time.
Yep.
So, Matt is on the clock
pregnant?
with the first pick. Could be after this weekend.
All right, with the one, I think this is a slam dunk, easy pick. Caleb Williams, obviously coming off a little bit of a disappointment, or disappointing season, I guess, compared to his previous season where he won the Heisman Trophy. But for all intents and purposes, he's still the top guy, probably in the NFL draft and in Superflex tight end premiums. He should be pretty easily the top guy here. There isn't much to debate here, I don't think. So, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, over 3,500 yards.
And it's funny that
last year
that's considered disappointing.
Right.
Fantastic numbers, did almost anything you could ask. It was just, honestly, their defense was atrocious. And because of how bad their defensive coordinator got fired partway through the season. And that cost them several games where he would have been in the running for Heisman again. They would have been looking at, one of the New Year's Bowls and things like that had they had a competent defense. But without it, it was a disappointing season for the Trojans.
Right.
I know on this podcast we always talk about top 10 quarterback pick, follow the draft capital, and this guy's been talked about as obviously going number 1 overall. So
right, and if it's not Chicago, they end up deciding to go in a different direction. They're still going to move that pick. Somebody's going to come up and get him.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if he wasn't the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
The number 1 concerns on him really are just playing within structure.
Mm-hmm.
People want to see that more. He tends to play hero ball too much, but I think that's just, being in college. And then he has the highest number of career fumbles since 2021 in FBS, and that's 31 fumbles. It's a lot of fumbles.
And he's not a huge guy either, right?
6'1".
Listed at 6'1", which means he's probably 5'11 and a half to 6 foot.
Right.
So, we have several guys that have been able to succeed being smaller. Mm-hmm. So it's not the knock that it used to be, but he's definitely not your prototypical size guy.
And he's also a high-end fantasy quarterback, right?
Yes.
Quarterback that likes to get out of the pocket and make things happen. When you watch Pat Mahomes play, there's a lot of Pat Mahomes game to Caleb Williams. Sure. The arm angles, getting the ball out, making quick decisions. He really does bring a lot of fantasy football upside as well. When you look at a guy like Michael Penix Jr., who's less mobile, really likes to stay structured in the pocket. Even though the other night he looked really good.
He ran when he needed to.
He did. He looked good
against Texas.
Doing it. He really does offer a high upside there, and he should easily in the Superflex League be the 1-1 slam dunk, no matter what your team needs are, because that's the upside you get. You get that top 5 fantasy football quarterback upside there, and that's just things you can't pass out. And like Jared said, we always talk on the show. If you get top 10 NFL draft pedigree, you should go 1, 2, as many as they are quarterbacks in your league, because they're such prized possessions. They're the highest scoring player on the field at all times. And even a guy like Jaden Daniels, if he goes top 10, he skyrockets. And then there's immediately an argument to take him over a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with his running skill set.
Yeah, and if you don't, you miss out on guys like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Some people, they miss out on guys like Justin Herbert. You miss out, but he was top 10. But even guys that offer that kind of ability, you miss out on those guys. And they're the haves and the have-nots. And they're easily the ones that can carry you to a championship. If you end up on your roster with 2 top 6 overall fantasy football quarterbacks, the rest of your roster could be
just okay,
solid.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And they're going to carry you every year in the playoffs. And then, and what this year showed us is you just have to get into the playoffs. That's all you have to do, because injuries are abundant. Anything can happen. There's so many teams in this playoffs that went into the playoffs this year. So many 1 seeds came in 3rd place this year. So many. My league that I talked about before, my hand league, I went undefeated. Most points by 300 over second. I didn't come in 3rd. I came in 2nd place.
Still,
but I didn't win.
I had
because
quite a few of those too.
Of injuries.
Yep.
And
There's
missing players.
Yep.
I was trying to find like my last minute subs. Losing on guys like Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. I won back-to-back ships in Ohio Dino League, and I forgot I left Amari Cooper in the lineup.
Yeah, I ended up winning the UDPL. I should have lost the round before if Brock Purdy hadn't put up that giant turd. I would have lost the round before. So there was a bunch of guys that you would expect to do well in certain opportunities that failed or just were hurt. So it happens every year in the playoffs.
Every year is it's a roll of the dice as to who's going to be playing, who's hot, and who doesn't have anything to play for anymore,
And who has Kyron Williams.
right? And who has Kyron Williams? Because he's going to carry you.
And when you get a player like that, like a guy like if you drafted Caleb Williams, and say you have Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, you still take a guy like Caleb Williams because, one, you keep Caleb Williams and trade one of those guys away. Because some people are automatically going, oh, I could trade Caleb Williams. Like, all right, well, if you have Caleb Williams, the more valuable asset to trade away would be like a Justin Herbert or possibly Trevor Lawrence, who's been down there.
Established guy that still has a lot of value. He's young. Yep.
Yes, and you keep the youth and you wait for the upside to turn over. And then that player gives you the ability to go get the Jamar Chase, the CeeDee Lamb, the Justin Jefferson. And next week's show, we're going to talk about some 24 winners and losers. And we're going to be coming really close on, I think probably the week after that, we'll probably do some our favorite buys and our favorite sells of the offseason, which we do. So we'll do one show favorite buys, one show favorite sells. And trust me, there's a lot of good sells, and there's a lot of good, in my opinion, there's a lot of good buys this year from down production. So that's why you take a guy like Caleb Williams, because that's the upside that he offers. So I'm going to clock here at 1-2.
Yeah, you are.
I'm going to preface this by saying when Drake May goes 1-2 overall, most likely, he'll be my 1-2 pick.
Okay.
But as of right now, he has not been drafted.
That's
so I'm going to
true.
take the best player here, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. He's not officially declared, but we saw he didn't play in the Cotton Bowl against Missouri.
That's a big hint.
That's a pretty big hint. Yeah.
When you talk about,
Plus, he saw the quarterbacks at Ohio State.
Yeah, he was like, wait, I got to play with who?
Not trying to hurt my draft stock.
When you hear the term generational players, it gets thrown around pretty loosely. And that's fine because it's fun to talk about great players that way. But this is probably one of the best players I've seen come out the receiver position. The greatest I saw was Calvin Johnson. But then, AJ Green in the same draft, AJ Green and Julio Jones were up there as well. But there's not a lot of receivers that I've seen come out that I would just say this guy is a slam dunk. Sammy Watkins.
You usually don't hear a receiver being the best non-quarterback prospect in a draft.
And that's what's getting thrown around here.
Yeah.
A lot of big-time scouts will tell you this guy should go number 1 overall. 6'4", 205 pounds. And there's nothing he doesn't do well. He's extremely fast. He can get behind the defenders. He can take the top off. He can stack a defender perfectly. He's got quick hands. He's got fantastic hands. Again, he's extremely fast. He does everything you want out of a receiver. His father, Marvin Harrison Sr., was a fantastic receiver. Just did everything right. Kind of reminds me of he reminds me of like a Devontae Smith, why we loved him so much. He does everything right.
Yep.
The way he wins. It's just Marvin Harrison does it at 6'4", 205 pounds.
The physical giftings are just different. But if you can have those physical giftings with the nuance of his father,
and that's what he offers you. He gives you everything that a small receiver does and everything that a big receiver does, and he is a big receiver. He's someone who's going to come in and, it's easy when we do the running backs. We go, Bijan Robinson's our dynasty running back 1. Zeke's my dynasty running back 1. Saquon's my dynasty running back 1 the moment they enter the NFL. Marvin Harrison Jr. for me is probably right around wide receiver 4 overall the moment he walks in.
Yep.
He's behind probably CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, I'm pretty close to getting, for me personally, flipping CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase.
I would say I think the only one there's not a question is Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. And
I think you could make an argument for anybody, any other receiver.
And seeing where Marvin Harrison, like, there's an argument to be made for me, and I know I can keep from this again because I talk about like taking Marvin Harrison Jr. ahead of a guy like Jamar Chase, like, which again is crazy, but he is that
we
talented.
know you hate him.
So no, I don't hate him. So getting a player like this, he's still really young, 21 years old. To have a player like this you can put in your lineup for 10 years is probably going to be at the top of their position. Is so hard to pass up.
Yep.
And even how we put Bijan ahead of the quarterbacks last year, if you wanted to take Marvin Harrison Jr. here ahead of Drake May, because say you had all those quarterbacks I said before,
Right.
And I know Drake May offers that Justin Herbert kind of upside is where he offers there.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you could flip Justin Herbert for Justin Jefferson, people wouldn't say you were crazy.
No, they're going to go right around the same spot in a startup.
It's pretty close. So Marvin Harrison Jr. fits that mold for me here, where, like, for example, in the UDPL league, you just won.
Mm-hmm.
I have Pat Mahomes, Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. I have the 1-2. My only receiver is Jackson Smith and Jigba. I'm taking Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
in that league. So that's a prime example of a situation where I'm taking a receiver over the quarterback because I have, and again, could I trade Drake May, whatever? I don't want to wait for that. I just want to take the stud receiver because I would trade Drake May for Marvin Harrison Jr. So he is that kind of prospect. I don't know if you guys want to chime in with what you've seen so far at Ohio State from him, but to me, he's an all-time prospect that I've ever watched on film.
I don't have much to add, man. I feel like we've already kind of said how much we love him throughout the season. That hasn't changed. Everything that he's done has just kind of solidified that thought in my mind. Mm-hmm. And I think the deeper I dive in, it's just going to keep getting I don't want to say it because I know Rich is going to just make fun of me. More solid. It's just going to keep getting more solid, Rich.
Right? So go out there and pluck with those long arms.
No, he is. He's a freak of nature, and it's not just Ohio State homerism or anything like that. Like national pundits, everybody's been talking about it. Even last year, I remember Gus Johnson on one of the telecasts saying he's already the best receiver in college football. And that was as a sophomore.
Right.
He's not done anything to hurt his draft stock at all. He looks just as dynamic as ever. And even a lot of the off the field stuff bodes well for him. Like
he's humble. He's got a great work ethic.
Exactly.
All that stuff.
Exactly. He from all reports he's a guy that's constantly working on his craft, like constantly working on it. And yeah, for a receiver, does not have the diva complex that a lot of other receivers have. So yeah, he's pretty freaking good.
Yep.
Pretty
special.
Jared,
he'd be the one. He's a clear cut number one in non.
There's other good receivers, but for me, it's not
non-Superflex leagues.
Oh yeah.
Yes, receiver class is deep.
It's a very good receiver class, but it's still clearly Marvin Harrison for me.
Yes, I agree.
No thoughts from me, Garrett, but
Cool.
you're on the clock.
Well, I'm up. This made it easy for me because I was going to be happy with Marvin Harrison or Drake May, whoever fell to me at 3. So I ended up getting Drake May here at 3. And while Caleb Williams offers that crazy upside and just the excitement, I think Drake May is the type of quarterback, if you were to go into a lab and say, like, what do I want this guy to look like? What do I want him to throw? Like he's just got all of those prototype skills that you would think of when you think of a franchise quarterback. He's got the size, 6'4", 230 pounds. So he's got a good frame on him. He's got good size. His arm is absolutely legitimate. He's been doing it for years. The past 2 seasons have been unreal. If anything, this season was a slight, kind of like Caleb's, slight disappointment. 2 years ago, he put up over 4,300 yards and 38 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. This year, only 3,600 yards and 24 touchdowns. But something that is a little overlooked in his game, similar to you made the Justin Herbert comparison, and I think that is a fairly good comp for him because he's a much better athlete than a lot of people give him credit for. He has 100-yard rushing games on his resume, which you wouldn't necessarily think of a guy that size and that build who's looked at as a pocket passer, but he can do a lot running the football. 450 rushing yards this year and 9 rushing touchdowns. So really good athlete, really good kid. There's not really a lot that could go wrong here. And remember, last year, and this was in a class where C.J. Stroud looks like the best quarterback coming out that we've seen in a long time. Fantastic rookie season. And obviously people were high on Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson too. Everyone was saying the 2 best quarterbacks are not eligible to come out this year.
Right.
It was Caleb Williams and Drake May. So if that gives you any indication on, I have to settle for Drake May, okay, you're settling for who would have been the top quarterback in last year's class.
Right. And, as it's shaping up right now, it's the Commanders and the Patriots after Chicago.
Right.
And both those teams are going to have turnover. They're going to have probably new coaches there,
Correct.
and both of them need quarterbacks. So he's going to go 2 or 3. So he's going to have the draft capital that you're looking for. And I mean, unless somebody leapfrogs him, but who knows? But the way it's looking right now, Drake May is probably going to be either the 2nd or 3rd pick.
Oh, he's going 2.
Yeah.
No doubt. He's too talented. His arm is beautiful. Like he's got a rocket arm.
Sexy arm.
Oh yeah, very sexy.
Sexy arm. I would not be surprised if the Patriots figure out a way to jump up into that number 1 spot and take Caleb Williams. It would not. I mean, they only got to jump 2 spots. It's a great spot for the Bears to still get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3. Like that just seems like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of time, and it's going to be overanalyzed.
We'll talk about it even next week. We'll overanalyze it ourselves
until something happens. But yeah, I mean, if the Patriots lose and somehow the Commanders win next week, they could be number 2. So then they're only moving up 1 spot,
Yeah. Or they might not even have to and just say, we like both quarterbacks. We'll let the chips fall to us.
Right.
He seems to have a real good understanding of like his offense too. I watched a few breakdowns of people that have played in the NFL. Colt McCoy did one. J.T. O'Sullivan did one. JT, I can't remember. But his dad actually played quarterback at North Carolina too. So he's a guy that kind of grew up around the game. And you can tell when you watch it. Like he seems to always know where he's going, where his reads are. When he's scrambling, he knows where to look. His brother played basketball at North Carolina. His other brother was a baseball player at Florida. So athleticism just runs in that bloodline. So,
and Baldock was a true freshman too. Like he came out as a freshman and started playing really, really well.
Yeah, he redshirted one year while Howell was
sorry.
there. Yeah, but
not
yeah,
true
he was
freshman.
Redshirt freshman, but still,
redshirt freshman.
Still pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But immediately when he came out, like, oh, this kid is something to look at. Like right after like Mitch, like, oh, this kid's something to look at around here.
Absolutely.
And it also goes back to show you how good Marvin Harrison Jr. is. So to even consider taking him over a quarterback like this, will go number 2 in the draft.
And North Carolina, to give them credit, traditionally looked at as a basketball school. And I get it, neither one of these guys are elite NFL quarterbacks, but there's plenty of schools that don't put out any NFL quarterbacks. For it to go Mitch Trubisky and then Sam Howell and then Drake May, it shows that they're building a little bit of a pipeline and a reputation of building up that quarterback position. And Mac Brown's done a great job. Obviously, he was at Texas for a long time, did some great work there, and he's made this not just a basketball school anymore. A lot of good NFL prospects have come out of North Carolina the past few years, specifically at quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah, very exciting prospect. All right, got to talk about a little bit Underdog here, a little new thing that going on. Underdog Fantasy Pick'em Champions, Dynasty Nerds in Alabama, Tennessee, Wyoming, and Mississippi. This one is for you. Underdog has launched a brand new game called Pick'em Champions, just for you. It's a new player versus player pick'em game that's all about strategy and fun. Choose 2 to 5 players, place your entry, and if your pick hits, you win big. When new users deposit $10 or more on Underdog, they will match your deposit up to $100. You will also receive a free promo code for us for a free year of the Dynasty GM and the Nerd Herd Bundle. And what a great time to have it, because that gives you access to all our tools, all our rookie breakdown content, the Nerd Score, and the Dynasty Nerds Film Room, and everything else we offer for the Dynasty Nerds memberships. And for our current Nerd Herd members, we'll give you that cool, great, most comfortable shirt in the world, guaranteed to increase your high five intake, the Dynasty Nerds t-shirt, waiting just for you. So click the link in the podcast description, head to Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code NERDS, and deposit at least $10 to start playing our new Pick'em Championship game. Then be on the lookout for your Dynasty Nerds promo code within 24 hours of your deposit. New members only. Again, that is promo code NERDS at Underdog Fantasy.
Saying, don't you forget running back. Come on.
Trust me, I have not.
So I'm next here at pick 104. And like Matt said earlier, this draft class is really strong at wide receiver. And we not only have Marvin Harrison Jr., but, I mean, Neighbors, I'm taking Malik Neighbors here from LSU. Some are putting him right up in that tier with Marvin Harrison. Some have him down in another tier with Rome Odunze, but Neighbors finished the season, and now he's the all-time leader in career receiving yards at LSU with 3,003, and he's the career leader in receptions with 187. And most are calling him one of the best wide receivers, if not the best, to come through LSU. And don't forget who's played there: Jamar Chase,
OBJ.
Justin Jefferson, Landry, OBJ, Dwayne Bowe, Brandon LaFell. So they're a receiver factory. So that just goes to show you how good this kid is. He's extremely electric when the ball's in his hands. He's forced the FBS leading 26 missed tackles on receptions. He was the Blitnikoff Award finalist this year. Analytics from this year, he had the third highest slot yards per route run since 2014 with 3.04. And that stat is really good just on its own, of merit of how good a wide receiver is on his own. And you plug them into different offenses, it just it has a real good correlation to how good they will do at the next level. Really love this kid. Extremely athletic, like I said. He has good length to him, 6 foot, 200 pounds. So I think if you don't hit on Marvin Harrison, you don't have the opportunity to take him at 104, 105, depending if Daniels goes before him. Even 106, you might be able to grab a guy like Neighbors, and I think he's going to be a really good pro.
I mean, interesting. I haven't had a lot of time to look at into his film. You know how I love my LSU wide receivers, though. So I'm gonna definitely take a deep dive into Neighbors. He sounds interesting as hell. I mean, just having you talk about him like that. Anyone that could come out of that program and lead it in receptions is doing something right? So I look forward to diving in to Neighbors personally.
Yeah, everything I've seen from him this year, he was one of those guys that was on everybody's radar coming in, but he really elevated his stock this season. And he went from a guy that's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be in the conversation as one of the top 7-8 wide receivers in this class. We'll see how things develop, to he's pretty clear-cut in most people's book as the number 2 guy right now in this class. So he did a great job really elevating his game. And that coincided with Daniels kind of elevating his. Mm-hmm. They both kind of grew together this season, but really great player. He's the only one of these like main players that doesn't have great size. He's got decent size. And obviously listed at 6 foot, he's probably going to come in at 5'11", which last year we would have loved to have guys at
5'9" guys.
Yes. But he's the only one here that's going to be maybe a tad bit under what we typically look for at wide receiver. But we've seen so many guys in that range just feast at the NFL
just
level.
Fine.
So it's not a concern at all.
Jaden Reed was about that, right?
I think he was even a little bit smaller, but
around 200 pounds, 5'10", 5'11". Yeah.
Everything I've seen Neighbors just casually, I think the best word, I think Jared said it, was like electric. Like when I see him get the ball, he's just an electric player. Yeah. It makes big time plays when he has the ball. So, and anytime you come into a school like that and break those kind of records,
yeah,
that's a statement.
That's big
and
time.
Everything I've read up to date is the same thing. The Neighbors is like right there.
Probably another top 10 pick.
And I've read the same thing. Top 10, like pretty sure to go top 10 NFL draft, which tells you a lot as well. So.
All right, so I'm up next. I took Jaden Daniels. I went back to the quarterbacks. I just feel like the premium at that position is going to push him up. Obviously, he won the Heisman Trophy this past season. He threw 40 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions, over 3,800 yards. And then on top of that, he rushed for over 1,000 yards, over 1,100 yards actually, with another 10 touchdowns. So he's got multiple ways to beat you. I do believe that combination of rushing upside and just I think above average ability to throw the ball. I think
Fields?
Could he be Justin Fields? I have no idea. There was he's not Lamar Jackson. He's a step down from Lamar, right, as far as rushing ability, but he's fast. I mean, you see that guy on tape, he is fast. He's outrunning guys in the open field. So I don't exactly know how to nail him down yet, but I know a guy that offers that much rushing upside is going to score a lot of fantasy points potentially. So at this early stage, that's where he's at for me. I just couldn't pass that up.
Yeah, and even just projecting out the NFL draft capital. Right now, he looks a lock to go in the first round, more than likely top 10. And at that point, even if like for me so far, and once again, haven't done a deep dive, I don't love Jaden Daniels. But I would probably take him right around here anyway, just because of that draft capital and how valuable those quarterbacks are in Superflex. So
remember the conversations we were having last year about Anthony Richardson, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that different in my brain. The arguments that I think he maybe even a little bit more consistent than Anthony Richardson was last year. You know what I mean? So
more polish.
More polish. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see exactly how the draft process goes and where he ends up getting drafted and how much capital there is there to see whether or not he can maintain this position. But
funny
right
thing
now,
is,
for this fun little thing that we're doing, I think this is a perfect spot for him.
The funny thing is my gut wanted me to say this, and then I stopped myself, but I'm going to say it anyway. I wanted to say, like, well, Daniels is a little more slight, so maybe more of an injury risk than Anthony Richardson. No, just kidding.
He's not as consistent as Anthony Richardson.
Kidding. That's for sure. Not as consistent.
I think, I'll call this, maybe it's too early or not, but that's fine. On January 2nd, like, I feel like Jaden Daniels, if he goes top 10 NFL draft, is going to be such good value in Superflex leagues because I bet in a lot of leagues where he just went here, 1-5?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to slip a little bit more because you have a generational talent at tight end in Brock Bowers. You already have the two wide receivers we already took. And Roma Dunze is nobody to just swipe away either. I mean, he'll probably go top 15 as well. NFL draft, and he's really good. So, like the Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen's, where even the Justin Herbert's, where say goes like 9 NFL drafts, and Justin Herbert went top 7, where people will be like, yeah, I really like Jaden Daniels, but he's not for sure at all. He's more of a running quarterback, and we'll find his nitpicking things to nitpick about him here in the coming months. But like Brock Bowers is a guaranteed tight end and tight end premium. Like he's the next big thing. I'm not missing out on that.
Can't pass up on a
which
premium.
Is crazy. Even say out loud that you would take a top 10 a tight end. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Travis Kelce. Like if a tight end puts over 1,000 yards receiving, you're like, this is the greatest receiver of all time. Just a thought. That's what 80 yards a game.
Not even
in that.
It's like 60 yards a game.
60 yards a game. So like
it used to be. Now
over a top 10 quarterback.
17th game, it's even less.
Yeah.
And nobody likes a tight end more than I do. But like that's going to happen.
Speaking of that,
so I'm going to clock, and I'm 100% taking Brock Bowers here,
What a great.
Which is like if you want in a tight end premium, if you want to take Brock Bowers over the Malik Neighbors, okay. If Jaden Daniels goes top 10, like it depends where he goes. Like
sure,
he might have to go after Marvin Harrison Jr. We'll see how it all plays out and what your team needs. But when you talk about Brock Bowers, like I just said a little bit ago, I'm glad my first 2 picks are 2 players I have had a time to watch. I've watched every snap of Marvin Harrison Jr., but I've been following Brock Bowers since his freshman year.
Right.
Because that's how long this dude has been balling out. He just turned 21 less than a month ago on December 13th. So he'll be 21 all of next year as well. He had that foot injury. He had a tightrope surgery a little over a month ago. Came back, still balled out. No big deal for him. This kid's 6'4", 240 pounds, and moves like an elite wide receiver. He's going to run into 4.4s. His route running, I mean, could it be a little bit better, but he's a tight end? Yeah, could be. But his hands are dynamic. His ability to, his balance, his ball skills, being able to line up all over the field. His speed for a tight end, he's like I said, in the 4.4s is gross. Like trying to put a linebacker or a safety on him is such a mismatch. All he does is win. And after his freshman year, people were talking about if this kid came out right now, he'd be a top 15 pick at the position in tight end. He will be a top 10 pick this year in the NFL draft as well. But he can line up all over. His routes are solid. He can block. You put the ball in his hands, And he's fantastic because now he's have the speed, but he's also got some shiftiness to him as well. You'll see he'll make the first tackler miss
He will.
a lot.
He does that often.
So when we're looking at, we talked about before, where does Marv Harrison Jr. slide in? There'll be an argument for Brock Bowers is where he slide in at the tight end position right away. We saw the unicorn Kyle Pitts. What happened to him his freshman year or his rookie year coming out? Even just coming out before he did anything, it was skyrocketing. And then he had 1,000 yards, and it was like, good luck trying to buy Kyle Pitts. Then Arthur Smith came around, that stupid mustache, and destroyed everything we love in Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. So
Everything we love.
you know, as good as Sam Laporta was this year, as good as my husband has looked over these last couple of weeks, he's looked. Guys, he's looked.
Good.
Little tap on the tuchus.
Other than that dropsies game, he had that dropsies game.
Hey, calm down.
Just saying.
Sorry.
When you listen
The
to
one,
like,
the one in the rain, he had the wrong gloves.
Wrong
He was wearing
gloves.
the wrong gloves.
Got to get the right gloves.
Yep, he had the wrong gloves. No big
the
deal.
ways Georgia teammates talk about him is just like, that dude is different. Like every time I hear an interview, it's just like, Brock Bowers is that dude. Like he's just built different. He's a freak.
And that's
no matter what
Georgia,
he
too.
does.
It's not like
Yeah,
a random,
right.
like, Mac school.
Yeah.
It's Georgia. Won 2 national championships in the past 3 years.
And,
Right.
and there are guys that just, it looks easy for them, right?
Mhm.
And that's what it looks like for him. It looks like he's that much better. It looks almost easy.
I've got no negatives
So, yeah.
against him whatsoever. I mean, some people are.
We got time.
Size, maybe.
I was going to say, he'll probably come in at 6'3".
The
Yeah,
number one
right.
people say is like, oh, and it kind of, Sam Laporta got a little bit of his size too. Like, oh yeah, he's a bowling ball, but like his size, like,
He's fine.
he's a big wide receiver, so he's just fine. I don't care if he's 6'3"
don't want him to
or whatever. He is unbelievable and has been every single year in almost every single game he's ever played in.
I do think the one thing that's tricky, not with Bauer specifically, but just the tight end position, is it does feel like that one is the most landing spot, quarterback, offensive mind dependent.
How are they going to use him?
'Cause-
How's he going to be in the scheme?
Yeah, we've seen some really good tight ends not get used, and we've seen some very mediocre tight ends have incredible seasons just because quarterback likes to check it down, or an offense that really features a tight end. And so it does seem like the one position out of all of these where most of them I don't really care that much about the landing spot. This is the one position where I do care a tiny bit more.
All right, here we go. Ready? Right now, currently the Chargers have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th overall pick. He goes to the Chargers.
Oh, yeah. It's instantly a top
Yeah.
3.
I mean,
Sound.
they just took
Tight end?
a wide receiver who's disappointed in the first round. Both the receivers, both those guys, we know
aging.
you have a
Should've
new
listened to
coach
us.
coming back. Allen's going to be 31. Mike Williams will probably be on a different team next year. Instantly the number one guy there in LA with Justin Herbert and the new offensive
yeah, it'd be
coordinator
nuts.
they're bringing there. I mean, if he goes to the Chargers, how high? Like, are you taking him ahead of Malik Neighbors?
Yeah, he
And tight premium?
probably goes right after Drake May.
Depends on the premium of the league.
Probably goes right after Drake May, I would guess.
Right around
Jets,
there,
the
right?
Jets are at 8. They need a tight end.
I
Jets
mean-
could do it.
The Jets could do it. The Giants could do it. The Titans could do it. You know, they're honestly Washington can do it if they don't get a quarterback. I mean, everybody but Atlanta in that top 10 could do it, and except for Chicago.
No.
So I mean, but he's everything we talk about, like Marvin Harrison Jr., like generational, like Brock Bowers says that. Like he's a better prospect than Kyle Pitts was. So he'll probably end up coming out as the best tight end prospect I've ever seen.
Is that 3 years straight now that you probably have said that?
Probably.
Yeah. You said that about Kincaid last year, right?
I said he's one of the best prospects I've ever seen at tight end.
Yeah.
I still stand by it. But I also said that whole class was really sweet too.
Yeah, we've had really good tight ends
Yeah.
coming in lately.
Yeah, it's been a good class.
But I mean, before that, nobody. I mean, then there's Pitts, who's.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, Pitts was the best prospect. I
Still a
think I've
good
seen.
prospect.
Still a great prospect.
Well,
No,
and
he's washed.
up until recently, the tight end wasn't featured as much, so we didn't have a lot of great athletes trying to play the position.
Yeah. It is starting to, we talked about that a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that it took time to filter all the way down
All the way
from
down, yeah.
the lower levels, and now it's
Everybody
working its way
watched Gronk and
Yep.
Jimmy Graham, and they were
Yeah.
like, wait, maybe tight end is a cool position to play.
up.
We'll enter 2024 the deepest tight end class I've ever seen. Fine, like after literally a decade of talking about it on this podcast, we'll finally have depth at the position. And like The low end of that depth that you're happy with is like Jake Ferguson, and I'm very happy with that at my roster. You know,
Yeah, he had a good season.
and it's all these young guys emerging, and we're not even talking about. David Njoku has taken a massive step forward this year.
He's
Massive
like
step forward.
I traded away David Njoku right before Joe Flacco got there.
I traded him away right two weeks before the playoffs. I got a non-tight end premium. Somebody offered me a 24 first, which is now end up pick 110.
See, I only got a second, and I was just like, it's a tight end. They're all the same after the first few guys. I'll take a second. Yeah, we're good.
Whoops.
Whoopsie.
And then with the emergence of the young guys now, you mentioned Jake Ferguson, but the Trey McBrides, who's in year 2, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid. We haven't.
I mean, Musgrave was doing well before he got injured, and even his fill-in. What's his name? The guy that filled in for
Tucker Kraft.
Thank you, Kraft.
Good too.
Yeah, he looks good too.
Yep.
Luke Musgrave, great buy in the offseason. Add him to the list.
Yep.
All right, I'm up at 1-7, and I knew I was taking a Washington Husky here. I wasn't confident on which Washington Husky I was going to take, but I knew I was going to take a Washington Husky here. I ended up taking Rome Odunze over Michael Penix. If Penix gets first-round draft capital, though, which after how he looked last night against Texas, you play like that in a bowl game, not just a bowl game, but in the college football playoffs,
Yeah.
and especially if he then goes out and beats Michigan,
Right.
it seems very likely he'll be a first-round prospect.
But before that, he was thought to be more of a day 2 guy, right?
He's going. Jim Nagy teased the other day. I think yesterday. He's going to be at the Senior Bowl. Sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
That'll be a nice
We'll be at the Senior
eval.
Bowl. Yeah.
Dude, his deep ball is a thing. And we've been talking about him now for
Beautiful.
We've been talking about him now for a couple months now on the podcast.
Yeah.
Just like randomly throw him in there. Like his arm is beautiful.
It is. So if he
Sexy.
if he gets first-round draft capital, I am probably switching this. But as of right now, I did take Rome Odunze ahead of him. And he was a really interesting one because had a fantastic year last year. And then all the buzz in the offseason was Rome Odunze is overrated. Just watch this year. He's going to be the bust candidate of this group. What does he do? He goes from 1,100 yards to 1,500 yards.
Number 2 in the country.
7 touchdowns to 13 touchdowns. And he is somebody that when he goes to the combine, he's probably not going to put up crazy numbers. He's going to be a very mediocre athlete.
4.55. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. 4.55 type of player. But we're talking a guy that's listed at 6'3", 200 pounds. So, I mean, he's got good size to him. But, man, I love the way he plays. He's a smart player. He is a smooth player. He's got very reliable hands. He does everything so well. So I've heard some Keenan Allen comps, and I don't hate them.
Ooh, that's a good comp.
He does kind of remind me of that Keenan Allen type player, where good size, but not a freak athlete. But man, is he smooth, and man, does he just seem to always come down with the football. And I think Michael Penix kind of flying up boards has a lot to do with him. Now, his whole receiving core is pretty good, and they kind of all played well together. Maybe not to the level that I'm about to say, but it kind of reminds me what happened when your Joe Burrow ascended out of nowhere. And Chase was with him, and Jefferson was with him. And all these guys kind of raised each other's game. I don't think these guys are at that level, but it does remind me of that, where a guy that's a little bit overlooked, a little bit of an older player, but he's always had the tools. And this year it finally all came together, was healthy, and these receivers kind of just climbed with him. So I love this whole situation. But Rome Odunze, he seems to have a very high floor for me. Will he ever be that elite wide receiver 1? Probably not. But he could, just because he does everything so freaking well.
I think he can 100%.
He's still only 21. He's not that old.
Yeah, for being a senior, he's not.
Not a quote-unquote early declare, people say.
For some reason, I end up watching. I don't know how I end up watching more Washington games. I think more than any other team in college football outside of Ohio State. I don't know how it happened. But I watched
they're on late.
Yeah.
I just end up watching, like, not even whole games, but like part. And he always. I've said to you, I think I don't know if it was you or Matt. I've always said that Rome Odunze guy, man. Like, he is just.
They were on TV a lot this year.
He's a baller, man. And like one of the things you mentioned, like
Pretty good team.
he'll go get the ball.
He will.
Like he attacks.
He has
the
a
football.
my ball mentality.
Yeah,
Yep.
and he comes. And you said come down with the ball, but like he goes and I want to emphasize that he goes and gets the ball.
He does.
There's everything he does is just really smooth. He's a pure wide receiver, and when you're a player like that, you don't need to run 4.3s. This is where like the 4.3 thing gets completely like overblown. When you're a Marvin Harrison running 4.3, then you're a generational talent.
Yeah.
But Roman Dunze is everything I want out of a receiver.
Even last night, I'm watching the game, and towards the end of the game, they're kind of trying to put the nail in the coffin against Texas, and a beautiful ball down the sideline by Penix, and Romo Dunze, it doesn't even look like he's aware that the ball's there because the DB's watching him the entire time. All of a sudden, late hands plucks it out, and the guy didn't have a chance to bring his arm. It's just that awareness that he constantly has. He's just a professional receiver.
A skill set that is so good to have a receiver. That so many receivers can't do this. Late hands.
Yep.
It's Amari Cooper does it beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to have late hands is how you can win. You don't even have to be you win against defensive backs all the time because they have no idea the ball's coming. To be able to have that attribute is such a special talent. And you said like, oh, I don't know if Roman Dunze is going to be a wide receiver 1. I 100% think he'd be a wide receiver 1.
Here's the
high-end wide receiver 1.
It's a tool in the bag, right? I mean, like if you have tons of separation, maybe you don't need that tool, right? Because you're separating.
Sure.
You got 2 yards of separation on every
Tyreek Hill.
Exactly. He can literally throw his hands up
running
way.
like
It doesn't matter because he's so far away from people. But if you're a 4.55 guy, it's a great tool to have, and it's one of those essential things that's going to get you just that little bit of extra space, and that's all. That's what it is in the NFL. You win in little increments here and there, and it sounds like he's got one of those tools at least.
Absolutely.
So I am next at 108, and I'm going to take the guy who was throwing the ball, Michael Penix Jr. Good size, 6'3", 215, and we were recording this on Tuesday night, and he played last night against Texas and absolutely lit them up in the Rose Bowl. They're moving on against Michigan in the national championship, and like Garrett just said, I mean, if he puts on another performance like that, I don't see how he's not going to go in the first round.
Right.
I mean, he's just so accurate outside the numbers. I think I saw a stat on Twitter where he threw for over 2,000 yards just outside the numbers. And
Wild.
we spent a lot of time talking about how Bryce Young was not good at that.
Not capable almost.
Why we were concerned with that and the way the NFL game's changing. You got to be able to push the ball downfield and be accurate. And accuracy has always been one of my top things I'm looking for in a quarterback. He avoids negative plays. He only took 11 sacks this year, which is crazy for the amount of times that they threw the ball. Right. Had a very low turnover-worthy play percentage, which PFF tracks that. So he was only at 2.7%. And for just context, Caleb Williams was at 9.2%. So just a great passer. Concerns with him, tore his ACL in both knees early on in his career. He's older. He's 24. So those are
Didn't he also have like
cons.
shoulder issue as well?
I'm not sure.
All 4 years at Indiana, he ended on like in IR. Two knee injuries, 2 upper body injuries.
Okay. I didn't have that note, so thank you for that, Matt.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are the cons on him. Just not extremely mobile. He was much more mobile earlier in his career after those knee surgeries and everything. He's a lot less mobile, but I think he's mobile enough. I mean, he's
According to Michael Irvin, he's Mike Vick.
Did you
hear him say that today?
No.
Yeah, Michael Irvin came on and he's like, yeah, it reminds me of Mike Vick. I'm like,
Okay.
just look at a stat sheet even. Just look at a stat sheet real quick. That'll tell you he's not Mike Vick.
I know I've read from one of the biggest cons too is like when he does get outside the pocket, he has to readjust.
He's left-handed
and black and can run in the game last night.
What'd you say, Rich?
I know a knock on Penix is like when he does get like flushed out of the pocket, usually it's when he starts to make bad decisions or his accuracy is off. But like last night you said, like he looked really good outside the pocket. That's his biggest con is always going to be like he's not mobile.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
It's going to be a question mark.
He could push the ball downfield at a high level. I mean, you mentioned, I don't know how at this point he gets out of the first round. I think there's a team that he would fit beautifully on to be able to sit and learn NFL, which I don't think he needs to sit because he's been in college football for 6 years, 4 years at Indiana, last 2 at Washington. The Rams. I mean,
I had that written down here.
Did you?
Like back of the first round.
Rams are a playoff team.
Yeah.
Matt Stafford's older with Sean McVay, and Matt Stafford's not an overly mobile quarterback at this stage of his career too.
Yeah.
Come in there and run that offense, he'd fit in there. I mean, he'd fit in there perfectly.
I think so too. Mid to late first. I think that's where he could end up. And I mean, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Denver, Minnesota,
Atlanta.
Yeah, all those teams really need a quarterback.
Seattle, another really good spot for him. Like, I just don't know. And then definitely Seattle. I mean, how if you're a Seahawks fan,
yeah,
right, and your team's on the board, and Michael Penix, like, you don't take that player. Like, how do you not do that?
He's
right?
from your state.
Well, actually, he's from Florida, but yeah.
He plays football right now in that state.
And he's played really well against good competition this year, too. He's come up big in big games. Just
the fact that they beat Oregon and then beat Oregon again, like that was really impressive. It's tough to beat good teams twice.
He'll be really good. If he goes in the first round, he'll be the player that in all the teams I was playoff teams, I have a first-round pick still in my Superflex leagues. He'll be the player that I'm praying falls to me.
Right.
Praying that he falls to me. Because his arm is that good. Like, I don't even know how he's not good in the NFL. I mean, it's fine he can't move, but there's a ton of quarterbacks that can't move. And you don't need a quarterback to be able to move in the NFL
Stroud's
these days.
not the
They're
best
protected.
mover, but, I mean, he does it enough, you know?
Yeah.
He's extremely accurate.
Design draws for him last night.
He's no Clayton Tune. Hey, guys, let me tell you about our friends at Sleeper. Guess what? Our app the mini is live on Sleeper right now. The Dynasty GM,
pretty.
you can use the analyzer, you can use the trade calculator, and my favorite thing is the inbox, right? Where all your trades from all your Sleeper leagues are right there. You can actually push trades through the actual Sleeper app. And right now, we couldn't be more excited to be partners with them. And right now, if you don't know, they are doing DFS. And I know how many people that play Dynasty play DFS as well. And right now, there's not a better place to play DFS than Sleeper. They're offering up to 100 times your entry, the highest payout in the whole DFS market right now. You can track your fantasy players and your Sleeper picks in real time. All you got to do is choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame, live in-game, or even across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats, and only on Sleeper you can get up to 100 times your payout. You can share with your friends and get rewarded together. Make sure you use that promo code NERD so our friends know that friends sent them their way. And get your deposit match and have a good time. You'll have all your DFS, all of your fantasy leagues, and now even a Dynasty GM in one spot. It is fully operational inside Sleeper right now. And then when you're a Nerd Herd member, you get that full access to that. And remember, you also want to download the Dynasty Nerds app because they're both in there. Check it out. Check our friend Sleeper. Check out the DFS. Use that promo code NERDS.
Get your whole estate. All right, so moving on to my next pick. So this was the guy that I was kind of I drafted him on name recognition.
Sure.
Went in and looked at some film afterwards. I was whelmed. I'll just call it.
That's a lot of people are coming around like that too.
So the pick I made here was Keon Coleman. Obviously, a lot of buzz in the offseason. He transferred from Michigan State. He chose Florida State. Started off really well against LSU and had some good games at the beginning of the season. Pretty much tapered off, though. You know what I mean? It didn't take very long. He ended the season as like 130th as far as receiving yards, 658 receiving yards, 11 TDs. He's a big guy, 6'4", 215 pounds, what he's listed at. So I think there's some stuff there to work with. But the one tape I was watching was him in actual slow motion.
They took it down already.
Okay, good. So we're gonna get that updated and get that up to normal speed. But even the normal speed film that I was watching, he looked a little bit sluggish to me. So I'm gonna have to really dig in and see all the tape before I kind of X him off my list or anything crazy like that.
Sure, but more of a round 2 guy for you more so than a round 1 guy right now.
Correct. Yeah, I just think this was probably a little bit too early after having watched the film.
Yeah. No, he did. He came out gangbusters those first few weeks, and he's definitely one of those players when you put on the highlights.
Yeah.
You're like,
he's going to make some cool things. He's going to make some highlight reel catches. That's a good way to put it.
He legitimately made one of the best catches I've ever seen a college player or NFL player make, where he one-handed caught like the middle of the ball, which I can see how you would catch the point when it's coming down, but he caught like it was crazy. But you're right, there are some nuances to his game that maybe aren't there that some of the other players might have. So I'm excited to dig deep and see how much of this is just raw physical, like incredible athlete-ness, and how much of it is being a good polished receiver.
Because we've seen those type of players, and they can get away with that crap in college. And when you get to the NFL, you get eaten up. If you don't have nuances and you're not into the little details of being a wide receiver.
And by all means, I mean, everything I've read about Keon Coleman is how he's an extremely hard worker and great locker room guy, a guy you want. He's always in there first and like getting his work done. So maybe he's one of those guys that can improve in those areas. But
I mean, I hope so. I'm not going to write anyone off, especially this early in the process.
I'm always concerned about guys that are strictly jump ball guys. Like body control is extremely important, but if that's your only thing, it's
limiting.
Yeah.
In the NFL.
One cool thing about him is he played basketball at Michigan State earlier in his career too, his college career. He played both football and basketball, and it shows up in his tape.
I mean, obviously 11 touchdowns.
He started off
only
real
50
strong.
receptions. You know what I mean? 11 touchdowns.
He faded towards the end of the year. Like he started off like real strong in the year.
Yeah.
Once
Jordan Travis went down. They
losing their
have much help
quarterback
at
definitely hurt.
I mean, once I saw, like, I found his stats. I saw how far down the list he was. I was like, he had to have missed a couple games. He didn't. There was no games. He just had some clunkers, man. So it was a rough go there for a little while.
Yeah. All right, mine o'clock.
Yep,
You're up.
All right, I am on the clock. What pick is this? Is pick
10.
number 10.
Yep.
So I have a player here that I didn't know. I've seen him rise up a lot of people's boards and rankings. Even like Dane Brugler put out today, like his top list of top 5 receivers that he gave big time grades to, and number 4 overall was Brian Thomas Jr. I had one spot ahead of Keon Coleman out of LSU, 6'4", 205 pounds. And, you see that 6'4", 205, like, oh, it's a big receiver. I just say to you, like, did a quick glance at film. This dude can move.
You can.
He's good.
The number one thing I saw, like again, going real quick, is he gets off the line really fast. Really fast. So he's a big receiver, vertical threat, get up the line really, really well.
17 touchdowns.
Yeah, I saw that he tracks the ball very, very well. I didn't see a lot of that in a quick field, a quick glance, but he tracks the ball really well. Big time playmaker there.
Almost 1,200 yards. He's got some impressive stats, that's for sure. I haven't watched him yet, but
yeah. So for me to get a guy that can move like that, to get off the line and be able to run routes and actually go out and get the football at that size, that wins at the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that can come out and win. I can't from a 12-minute, and I know you say 12 minutes, like that's not a lot of time, but when you're in a nerd's film room, like 12 minutes is a lot of time.
3 games sometimes.
Yeah, it's like 3 games that you can watch real quick. No notes, just casually watching it. This is something that I'm excited to dig into because I had no idea about him.
He's the second
really
option. Malik Neighbors is the first option. He got
their quarterback won the Heisman.
He got almost 1,200 yards and 17 touchdowns. Like that, those are really impressive numbers.
There's a lot of things I saw on film that he did that you're like, ooh. What's
his name?
Matt's excited. He got 2 LSU receivers
I know,
again.
Brian Thomas.
Yeah, 6'4", 205 pounds, gets off the ball really well. For what I've seen here, like doing some quick notes on him as well, is like he can vary his route running. Doesn't seem like he's overly great in traffic, like the contested catch kind of player. You get a little Quentin. I hope it's not a little Quentin Johnson kind of thing I'm looking at there. But, the big receiver that can't go out and fight for the football.
Right.
But again, I mean, I really like the way he was able to go and attack and find the football and get off the line, and his speed to be that vertical threat, and actually see him line up in the slot as well there for LSU. So big receiver. This class is going to be full of them. This guy offers a ton of upside here at the back end of the first.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great option. He's another one that I haven't dug a ton into, and preseason there was not a lot of buzz on him at all because this was really his first real season.
He's coming off like a 300-yard season or something.
Yeah, this was his first real season. So that always does make me wonder a little bit, like, but then again, it's LSU. It's a tougher place to be able to get reps compared to some other schools. So I'm interested to dig into him. I've picked 11 here, and it's crazy for most years to say we're at pick 11, and this is the first running back off the board.
Crazy.
It's wild.
I don't know that's – I can't remember a draft like that. And all that to even say, this guy might not even be available to take.
I honestly, I was thinking about taking him maybe in the Keon Coleman slot but I was like, I don't even know if he's coming out. I'm not going to take him.
Yeah, I don't know if he's coming out either. But overall, this is probably the weakest running back class that we've seen. And there'll be some guys that crop up as we watch film that we like and we're interested in. But there's not that headliner or two name that we get most years. TreVeyon Henderson, what helps is he's kind of kept it the whole way through. He was the number one running back in the class coming out of high school, went to Ohio State, played right away, and had a fantastic season. And it seems crazy now, but there were conversations of, is he Bijan Robinson level? Because when you come in as a freshman at Ohio State, put up 1,200 yards and 15 touchdowns as a true freshman, those are the types of conversations you have.
Right.
Problem is he's dealt with a lot of never the big injury,
nagging injuries,
but just a lot of nagging injuries. Only played 8 games as a sophomore, only 10 games this year. And honestly, up until about the last 4 or 5 games of the season, I was like, man, maybe he's not what I remembered. Maybe I'm just, rose-colored glasses. And then it seemed like he was finally healthy again.
Yeah.
And man, he was hitting those holes hard.
He was
confident. Like he
lateral burst was back.
Oh my goodness. He looked fantastic. Yeah. So I don't know if he's going to be back, but I think he's a very, very talented back. And I love guys that have kept that pedigree the whole way through. Number one back out of high school, and number one back in the draft class, potentially.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how this all ends up playing out. But it is fun to be able to say, like, oh, yeah, I took the top running back in the class at pick 11.
At pick 11. And crazy with the NIL number or NIL money.
Yes, it changes a lot.
That some of these guys might just go back to school, make that money,
especially at running back.
At running back, yeah. And just enter the draft a year later. No big deal.
There's some good spots you can end up in, too. Like in the second round, it's like a couple spots. Like if he'd say he does go in the second, he goes out, he goes to the second round, like back in the second round. A team like, well, this would be high, but like a team like the Cardinals, therefore. But
be great there.
Another team that has multiple picks that we give you the back in the second round, former teammate as well, the Houston Texans.
Yeah.
With that offense, like they could really use a dynamic running back. Mm-hmm. And boy, you throw him in there with Nico Collins and Tank Dell and CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That's a really good fit for him out there. Obviously got to boost the offensive line as well.
Sure.
But say if he goes in the third round, say TreVeyon Henderson in the third round. Now you're talking about a bump up here in the Dynasty overall ranks, but a tremendous electric player.
There are a lot of teams that are going to need running backs. Packers could very well use a running back. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Saquon in New York? They could be in the market as well. So
the Raiders, the Bears,
just hope he doesn't go to the Ravens.
Even though we say they have,
he would actually be fantastic.
Washington,
oh yeah, for sure. I'm just
could use that. Carolina could use one. Technically, Minnesota could use one, even though Ty Chandler has looked pretty good. The Bengals could use one.
Everyone needs a running back these days.
It really
there's only a
stop.
few teams that wouldn't draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, looking here, there's a lot of teams that could definitely use a running back that's kind of bump. Kansas City is another one that could bump up this running back.
He would be great with
market.
Pacheco because even though TreVeyon Henderson has looked good between the tackles, he's best in space. Yeah. That's where Henderson really thrives. So you have Pacheco, as the battering ram, and you have him on third downs. A different,
Chargers
we even mentioned
in that same division.
Chargers, and two teams that have dynamic offense. They're top 2 in the league almost. Dallas and Baltimore. Yeah. And Baltimore that loves running the football. There's a lot of teams that can use a running back this year.
I think he's
talking
going to
about
declare.
I think he's going to declare, and I think he's going to go.
I think we'll
mid to early.
I think he'll
round.
be the first running back off the board for sure.
And I think his draft stock will be boosted in Dynasty, and there'll be another running. I think because of where somebody lands and where they get drafted, there'll be another running back in the first round we end up seeing.
I could see that. I could see
this
that.
year? Oh, of the rookie drafts.
Of our Dynasty
of our rookie drafts, not
yeah.
of the actual NFL.
Gotcha.
I could see it where he's the one and only guy in the second round. We'll see how it all plays out.
Let's say he declares he's a second-round draft pick. He's the first guy off the board. How high do we see him? Because I said I would definitely have taken him instead of Keon Coleman, but that's at 9. Would he go higher than 9?
Spot.
Because
he'll bump up a little bit simply because he's the first running back.
Let's say he goes to Baltimore. How high? Because that's like a ceiling landing spot, I would think.
I think it would be hard for him, assuming Penix goes in the first round, I think it'd be hard for him to get above Penix.
Yeah.
maybe above Odunze.
Probably 7.
Maybe.
Dude, Dunze's
but-
too good.
7, 8-ish.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the highest I could see him going.
So this
But
might
teams
be
reach for running back.
in a Superflex
They
tight end
were
premium.
one
I mean,
who
this
reaches.
might be the latest we're going to see a running back come off the board
in a
in
long time.
years. Maybe. I mean,
Maybe ever.
maybe ever as far as
Honestly.
I can remember. And anyway, that's crazy. I mean, that's 7, 8, 9.
And listen, Blake Corum's one of those running backs that, like, there's always that one running back like, oh, he went the second round, like,
Yeah.
wow, or the third, like, wow, he went the third that high above this player.
I mentioned it last year, and he didn't end up coming out. But, Jared, do you remember who I kind of comped Blake Corum to? And
Ray Rice.
Huh?
Was it Ray
Williams?
Rice?
No, it was a guy that looked like he was going to be terrible, and now is fantastic.
I don't remember.
It was Kyron Williams.
Oh, okay.
I comped him to Kyron. I was like, I think he's a little bit faster version of Kyron Williams. And that looked like a major insult last year. Now that looks like a great compliment. So
He's kind of like the who we were talking about. Like, he doesn't do, like, I mean, that jump cut the other day for that 17-yard run was beautiful. Like, he's not like an overly dynamic running back. He's just a good running back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, good vision.
I did a
good
nerd
feet.
score on him last year because I thought he was going to declare. Most people did.
Yeah.
And it was like surprisingly pretty good. I forget exactly what it was, but I remember being surprised and just, okay.
There's definitely guys that could be parts of committees. I just don't know that we have any back that's like going to be the guy in this
Right,
class.
yeah,
but
there's
you never
no-
know how things shake out.
No Gibbs, Achane, or
No.
Bijan.
Bijan.
Yeah.
Nope. Hey, Dynasty Nerds listeners, want to extend your fantasy football season? Jump into the FFPC Playoff Challenge and grab a chance to win up to $500,000. With 2 thrilling options, enter the $200 challenge for a $500,000 grand prize, or try the $35 challenge for a $100,000 grand prize. It's easy. Just pick 12 players, 1 from each playoff team, to fill your lineup of 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 4 flex, 1 kicker, and 1 defense. No draft, no salary cap. Remember, the contest locks at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, January 13th. So head to myffpc.com, use our special promo code NERDS, and receive $25 off your entry. Don't miss this chance to keep the fantasy football thrill alive. Go to myffpc.com and take your best shot at either the $100,000 or the massive $500,000 grand prize. Remember, use the promo code NERDS for $25 off.
So what's the last pick here?
112, it's me.
Yep.
And I am taking another record setting for his school wide receiver, and that's Troy Franklin from Oregon. 6'3", 187 pounds, young. He's only 20 right now. But he also broke his school's receiving records. He's got the all-time receiving touchdowns record, all-time single-season receiving yards record, and they're calling him the best receiver to come through Oregon ever. And they don't have a ton of wide
I was going to
receivers.
say, that's not
like
a
LSU.
super high bar. But
Right, but still really good.
for sure.
Can play the slot, can play out wide. He lined up out wide about 80% of the time, but extremely fast, explosive, can get down the field. When targeted, the quarterback rating was 146.8. Has really good hands. He's got good length. I think he could sneak in. We could see another first-round wide receiver here with this guy's athleticism and his size. He's not like Doppy. He's a pretty smooth big guy. So I like Franklin here. Really interested to see, how this offseason progresses with all the, as we dig in further.
Yeah, Franklin was one of those guys that was on radars. People had been talking about him. Another guy with good size at 6'3".
6'3". He's listed at 187. So
He's a little slight.
Yeah, I was gonna say he must be a little bit slighter.
He's a little bit slight compared to some of these, Marvin Harrisons and Odunze and guys that are a little bit thicker. But he can move. He can move. I'm curious to see, how things play out for him combine wise and what his numbers are going to be. But he's definitely a guy that can move and make big plays down the field. So we'll see how it all plays out. There's going to be a lot of guys in this. I think for me, it's pretty clear the top guy and then, Neighbors and Odunze. And then after that, there's going to be a group of 4, 5, 6 receivers that are all going to be end of the first round or within the first 15 picks of the second round. And a lot of good players. It kind of reminds me in that sense of the Michael Pittman Jr., T. Higgins, Justin Jefferson class. Like,
I was just thinking, we're going to find our Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah,
we're going to find him.
It reminds me of that class where the top guys were good, but it was just as good in the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. It kind of reminds me of that class. So
it all sorts stuff out. Like I've said this multiple times on the show. Like at the end of that class, I came back. The last thing I said, I was like, I think after studying all these receivers, I think I was too low on Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah.
That was my final statement in class. Like I think I was too low on him after watching all his tape. So with this class being so deep as well, I'm excited. Like I'm excited to sift through these guys and actually rank them. You're right. Like, okay, I like this guy more than this guy. And, hopefully I could not have a tanked out where I say this guy's not off my board, find something to win. The difference is they're all big. So like, I love big receivers,
right?
It's why I love Cedric Tillman last year. I like Marvin Mims so much because of their size and their speed, and they got to fit in a lot of these players' molds as well. So that's the first round. We'll be back with the next show. Should be out tomorrow with round 2, Superflex tight end premium. Way too early.
Way too early.
Rookie mock draft.
Early. Adios.